Last season, 5 running backs had at least 350 touches across the regular season and, where applicable, the playoffs. Kyron Williams, Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, Bijan Robinson, Derrick Henry. It was the most running backs to have 350 plus touches since 2012, when there were 7. Some of the, we might find that there's more in recent years because in 2021, switching to a 17-game schedule, playoffs expanding, there's going to be more opportunities for running backs to get more touches. But we're also living in a different era where running backs are held back a little bit more. We're not seeing as many 350 plus touch running backs as a whole on a per game basis, at least. But because of those extra games, we might see more. And yet, in 2021, there were only 3 who had at least 350. In 2022, there were 4, and in 2023, there were only 2, and that was Rashad White and Christian McCaffrey. This year, we're going back to what could be record territory in the modern NFL era, where we could have Jonathan Taylor, James Cook, Christian McCaffrey, maybe Saquon Barkley, maybe Kyron Williams, outside chance of Bijan Robinson, an outside chance of Josh Jacobs. So that's 7 guys. And in 2012, if we go back to that last year where there were 7, and by the way, that was fairly unusual for that time, going back the previous decade. I think 2006 and 2005 were the big monster years when there were, the end of that era of massive usage running backs, the LaDainian Tomlinson, Sean Alexander. And then things got quieter in the next mini generation of running backs. But in 2012, there were 7 who had at least 356 of them did worse the following season. 2012 is when I published my book, Fantasy Football for Winners, and it's kind of the start of where a lot of my research happened. And finding this a few years later was like a gold mine. There might be something to this, that running backs who get overworked regress the next season. One regression was 37%, another was 33%, another was 64%, and another was 17%, another was 78%, and another was 29%. The only one who was on the plus side, who did better statistically the year after, was Marshawn Lynch. He did 2% better. Marshawn Lynch happened to, be a unique kind of running back in terms of his longevity and ability to withstand that kind of usage. Not a lot of running backs can do that. There's a few these days who can. Derrick Henry seems to be able to, with all but maybe one exception. In 2021. Jonathan Taylor is a notable exception. He's had some injury issues, but on the whole, he's been a fairly reliable, high usage running back for years. And Josh Jacobs is another one who, in general, has been very high usage and relatively healthy during his career. So looking at the guys this year, who could fall next year, a lot of them are going to be ranked very high in ADP next season. I mean, Jonathan Taylor is going to be elite. James Cook is going to be elite. Christian McCaffrey is going to be elite. There's a chance that, a pretty good chance that Bijan Robinson is going to be top 3. And so there you go. There's 4 guys there who could realistically be the top 4 fantasy running backs, or 4 of the top 5 if we add Engineer Gibbs. And they would all be coming off potentially 350 plus touch seasons. It sets the table for, shifting our draft strategy. If you believe, as I do, that those 350 plus touches are a warning sign, especially for older running backs, Christian McCaffrey being the oldest, then Jonathan Taylor, then James Cook, and finally Bijan Robinson. But Robinson maybe is the least risky. McCaffrey, of course, would be the most risky. And Cook and Jonathan Taylor in their own ways would present higher than normal risk. The question becomes, if you have an early pick in the first round, do you go wide receiver? And I realize that a lot of people got burned this year going wide receiver, that there has been a return, the mindset of the manager, of managers that I've spoken with is, and a lot of people weighed in on my blog, is that, they want to go back to running back in the early rounds. So that seems to be the answer, that if only they had drafted, Jonathan Taylor or James Cook, rounds 1 and 2 in reverse, or Christian McCaffrey and then James Cook or whatever else, like you could have gotten some amazing value and then swoop in and get some good wide receivers later. Um, but I would say that that doesn't mean that we do that next year. Just because it would have worked this year doesn't mean it would work next year. And actually, there might be a case to be made that because running backs have been so good this year, especially with these high usage running backs, that that is a sign that shifting to a running back heavy draft strategy might actually kick you in the butt in the same way that a wide receiver strategy did this year for some managers. And then, in fact, we need to heed the warning that if the projection is, and I'm projecting this, that those 4 guys I just mentioned are all going to be elite high ADP running backs in the next draft. If you draft one, there is roughly, ranging from Christian McCaffrey to Bijan Robinson, roughly a 35 to 40% down to maybe a 15% chance of a meaningful regression in 2026. Are you willing to take that chance with your first pick? I am not willing to take that chance. There's plenty of quote unquote safe wide receivers who you could take with the first, in the first few picks. I mean, Puka Nacua and Jackson Smith and Jigba have proven that they can be dominant weekly must start wide receivers. Do you go with them with the understanding that they're both young and they both have extraordinary upside? Or do you take a chance, run it back with James Cook, let's say, and hope that he can replicate those numbers, even though history shows that high usage means he has a high risk for a regression? I will probably be going wide receiver heavy in the early rounds if it's presented to me. Obviously, if I get a bargain late in the first round with a running back who I think is going to be great, and they're coming off a 220 touch season and they're ascending, that makes sense. But if it's, keep an eye on basically these guys and whether they push past 350, in some cases pushing towards 400, then they're going to be overvalued to the extreme, and we need to avoid them in the next draft. I'm BJ Riddell, Fantasy Football for Winners. Follow me on the blog. Email me anytime. See you tomorrow.